consciousness snapped online with abrupt decisiveness. I had the acute feeling of being alone in a world that was wrongly serene, like the silence of the dead. I'd been dreaming of something horrifying, but the details were dancing just outside the boundary of my ability to recall. The panic I'd woken with was caught in my chest. It held me frozen to the sheets as my mind reconfigured to the safety and familiarity of my apartment. Though the context of the dream was faded and surreal, the fear was vivid and raw. It was a visceral terror, compounded by a deeply rooted aversion to vulnerability. As I lay there, waiting for the sensation of cold dread to die away, the room was unceremoniously lit up by the glow of the wide monitor that comprised the wall opposite my bed. Shielding my eyes from the sting of the sudden light, I heard Ava, my virtual concierge, ask if I would like to receive a call. Who's calling?
A Pavel Volkov is awaiting your response.
Light and dark, the ones and zeros of a binary skyline. Yeah, okay. Then Pavel's finely kempt visage was smiling keenly at me from my wall. He was standing on a rocky beach, and waves were lapping at the shore behind him. It's late, Pavel.
Good morning, Jacoby. My apologies for contacting you at this hour, but I thought you'd want to know that I've located the target.
Where are you?
I'll send coordinates to your cube.
Pavel Volkov was a liar and a thief. He'd conned so many wealthy aristocrats that he'd become one himself, but he stayed in the game for the sake of his own twisted entertainment. He was an artist who specialized in painting perfect illusions. Deception was his medium, but I'd worked with him for long enough that I trusted him when it came to getting the job done. I'd been driving south from the city for long enough that dawn was preparing to break. After removing a dark, reflective cube from my coat pocket, I inserted it into a receptacle on the dashboard as the car wound its way along the high coastal road. The ocean below seemed anxious and dangerous, but I had a suspicion that it might just be a projection of my lingering unease. As the night began to evaporate into morning, a blanket of fog became evident, rolling in over the waves from the west. In the waxing light, the waves did in fact seem more violent than usual as they crashed over the rocks and smashed into the base of the cliffs as if searching for a weak spot to break through. A holographic display came to life above my cube to alert me that I was approaching my destination. Pavel's location had remained static. Wherever they were comfortable. He was very likely at someone's home or beachfront rental, and I had a feeling that whoever they were, they wouldn't be pleased to host unexpected guests at this hour. Message Pavel, I'm here. I reached the driveway to the house, which snaked down through the trees toward the ocean. Above the beach, there was a modern raised villa beyond a rotary, in which several cars were parked near the main entrance. One of them, a cherry red convertible, I recognized as belonging to Pavel. The morning light was growing in intensity, so I hurried forth to utilize the last bit of darkness the weakening night had to give. When I hit the sand, I scanned the shoreline for Pavel. A figure drifted toward me from farther up the beach. The cherry end of his cigarette glowed brighter for a moment when he raised it to his mouth, but any smoke he exhaled was lost in the heavy fog that had now reached the shore. "Jacoby," he said in a moderately obvious Russian accent, before taking another drag off his smoke. His connections to the Russian syndicate had made him the ideal associate for this particular operation. Although he'd sworn off their activities long ago, his family was still deeply entrenched, and that had allowed him certain avenues of communication we'd taken advantage of to infiltrate this particular band of thieves. "What's the situation?"
8 men if you include Peter, 6 women. I found his friends at the Night Flower, just like Lena said we would. Most are either fucking or asleep now. They brought me back here to where he's been hiding. At the moment, he's still awake, getting high on blue right off the deck in the living room. I left the door open.
Okay, that's it for you.
Go and I'll transfer your payment.
Moi drug, which translated to my friend in Russian.
You know it's not really about the money, right?
I enjoy watching you work. If it's all the same, I think I'll stick around.
This one is a real bastard. Be careful inside.
Depending on how high he was, the blue would either make this easier or much more difficult. It was a narcotic substance used to induce euphoria and mild hallucinations in small doses. But once enough of it was in your system, it also behaved like an amphetamine, granting increased strength and focus. Too far over the line, though, and you crashed pretty hard. They called it riding the wave. I crept up onto the deck, put my hand to the wall of the house, and chanced a glance through the windows to get a sense of the situation inside. 3 men and 2 women were sprawled on a large white sectional couch at the center of the wide open room, facing away from the deck. A glass table near the couch was littered with bottles and paraphernalia. A handful of empty glass vials coated with a bright blue liquid were haphazardly strewn about the table. Mixed in among the vials were several expensive handguns. From behind the glass, I could hear muted operatic music. Anna Netrebko from La Boheme, around the turn of the century. 2 of the men looked mostly unconscious, but my target and both women were definitely awake, wildly entangled in a hedonistic amalgamation of injections, tongues, and arms. I moved carefully to the door in the center of the deck, which Pavel had left slightly ajar for me, and pushed it open far enough to pass through.